You never forget the sound. You remember the silence that follows, the kind that presses against your ribs and waits to see if your heart keeps going. The road curled under my tires like a ribbon in the Los Gatos Hills, a road I knew so well I could have driven it with my eyes closed. That night my hand slipped on the wheel, sweat slick, knuckles pale. The brakes shuddered. The car argued with every turn. Easy, I whispered, like you talk to a spooked animal. Instinct flickered. Not panic yet, something colder. Betrayal. My name is Vincent Sloan. I build trust and decode. Palo Alto engineer, founder, the guy who taught machines to see a curve before a human brain finished the thought. I believe in data over gut. Maybe that's why I didn't see the human part coming. The story that would eat the facts alive. He tried to kill us. Ellison told the jury, arm in a cast, voice soft enough to make strangers lean in. He snapped. She looked at me like the past was a costume I had outgrown. For the money, she added, eyes shining. I almost laughed. 2 weeks earlier, my firm had landed a federal pilot with the Department of Transportation, predictive crash prevention, neural nets for autonomous fleets. You don't burn your house down on the day you get a new roof. But courtrooms run on narrative fuel. Facts ride shotgun. They cuffed me 3 days after the crash in a school parking lot, red and blue strobes painting the minivans. A teacher gasped. A kid dropped a lunchbox. My daughter saw it from the window. Sir, hands behind your back. I didn't argue. What was I going to say? Check the code? My search history was a murder note I didn't write. How to disable brakes undetected. Passenger side collision dynamics. Financials? Bent to fit a motive. Overdue loans. A policy bump on Ellison. Convenient. My brother Donnie said later, jaw tight. The car's logs were corrupted. The dashcam damaged. The key fob traced to your desk. Convenient is the word you use when the trap is elegant. In court, Ellison wouldn't look at me at first. When she did, it was like I was a stranger wearing my face. He changed, she said. Pressure. The prosecutor smiled like a magician palming a coin. Mr. Sloan, did you search these terms? No. Did you increase your wife's insurance? I didn't. Did your company struggle? We just scaled. Story beats landed like hammers. I felt the jury lean where the music told them to lean. Here's the thing no one tells you. You can be right and still lose the room. I used to think betrayal was loud, doors, shouting, things thrown. This was quiet, methodical. It felt engineered. You think this is just her? Donnie asked through the glass on the first visitation morning. His eyes held the kind of stillness you only earn the hard way. I followed the math. Ellison had long-term access to the home network, my router, my cloud. She knew my rhythms. And there was a name from a backyard cookout, a cop who wore control like a habit. Threads. Not proof yet. But the pattern started breathing. I lay on the jail cot that night, listening to fluorescent hum and metal thunder, and told myself something simple. If this is a machine, it has welds. If it has welds, it has seams. Ask yourself, who has your passwords right now? Who could rehearse your ruin until the timing felt natural? If a lie is rehearsed, where's the rehearsal space? I had given my life to systems that protected human life at speed. Someone took that trust and sharpened it. Someone rehearsed me into a villain with a half-second delay on a curve I had driven 100 times. They built this like a machine, I said when Richard Ashford finally sat down beside Donnie. Rage on him like cologne. So let's take it apart. Ashford's pen clicked once. Donnie nodded once. That's all. No speeches. No promises. Just the blueprint of a lie I could finally see and the first screw beginning to turn. His name was Peter Mills. Ex-San Jose PD. Badge gone after too many complaints and one whiskey-soaked night, where he crashed his cruiser into a lamppost and laughed about it. I'd met him once. Backyard cookout, Modelo in hand. Eyes like a man who couldn't survive without control. He said he knew Ellison back in the day. I should have listened to the static that raised in my chest when he smiled. After my arrest, his shadow stretched across everything. The prosecution's case had been too perfect, too rehearsed. Screenshots, voice memos, even emails I supposedly wrote. My drives were encrypted, my phone locked down tighter than a vault. Only two people had long-term access to the keys, Ellison and maybe Peter. They're not having an affair, Donnie muttered when I told him. I looked at him through the glass. No, Donnie. They're staging one. Because that was the strategy. Ellison brought the charm. Peter brought the police know-how. Together they didn't just lie, they rewrote me. Browser history filled with poison searches, brake line sabotage, life insurance payouts, DIY kill switches. Crypto wallets drained and routed through anonymous chains until it looked like I was ready to vanish. It wasn't evidence. It was choreography. Donnie dug through metadata like a soldier sweeping for mines. Ashford cross-referenced logs with surgical rage. And cracks began to appear. That motive email to my accountant, sent through a VPN node I'd never touched. The offshore account with $800,000 supposedly in my name? Pure fabrication. The signatures looked right, the timestamps close enough to fool a casual eye, but not Ashford's. This isn't sloppy, he whispered one night. This is rehearsed. The word stuck in me like glass. Rehearsed. Which means they practiced. Which means they left footprints somewhere. Peter wasn't a side character in this play. He was co-author. He had contacts in the old precinct. Backdoors only a cop would know. He didn't just plant queries. He rewrote my identity at the system level. It wasn't lying anymore. It was a rewrite of my entire self. And Ellison, she wasn't a victim. She wasn't trembling in his grip. I saw her now as she really was. The woman who once traced her fingers across my jaw and whispered pride in my work, standing beside him, feeding him proximity, handing him my life like a blueprint. One night, Donnie leaned in, voice low through the jail glass. They didn't just build a lie, Vince. They rehearsed it. Somewhere, somehow, there's rehearsal footage. We find that. We tear their play apart. My chest tightened. He was right. A perfect con doesn't stay invisible forever. Every magician has practice tapes. Every liar has a rehearsal. And once we found theirs, the system that had erased me would start to glitch. Ask yourself, if someone rewrote you online, piece by piece, would anyone know the real you was still alive? That was the question that kept me breathing in that cell. Not hope, not rage, just the certainty that somewhere out there, their practice left a scar. And scars always tell the truth. You never think the tools you build will be fitted to your throat. We designed for safety, efficiency, predictability. I taught machines to anticipate a skid before rubber even thought about screaming. 10 years of algorithms that saved strangers. Then, in a plexiglass box, I watched those same principles circle back like a boomerang with a blade. They're calling you a threat masked as genius, Ashford said, sliding a tablet to the glass. Headlines bloomed like bruises. I stared past them, into the car that wasn't mine but ran on my firm's code base. Adaptive AI, situational learning, brake sensitivity prediction. So how did they do it? Donnie asked. The answer lived in a half-second. Someone slipped a subroutine into the firmware 2 days before the crash. Just enough delay on right turns to turn a 45-degree curve on Highway 17 into a perfect storm. Not noticeable at low speed. Catastrophic at the wrong angle. Half a second, Donnie whispered. That's all it takes, I said. At speed, half a second is a lifetime. The signature pointed at me. A code commit buried under a dev alias none of us recognized, timestamped to look like I'd pushed it from my laptop. Audit trail neat as pressed cuffs. CI/CD logs aligned. If you glanced, it sang. If you listened, it hummed wrong. Too clean, Ashford muttered, eyes narrowing. Like a set before the actors walk in. We pulled internal emails, vault access logs, every get push and revert. The pipeline choreography was flawless, and that bothered me. Who had access to your source vault 2 weeks ago? Donnie asked. I listed names, lead devs, security me. Then the one I didn't want to say. Ellison, I breathed. Years ago, I'd given her a consulting login to help with early grant proposals. Limited access. I never revoked it. The word tasted like metal. Could she reach firmware? Not directly, I said. But she could map who could, and when. A good forgery steals your face. A great one borrows your footsteps. Whoever scripted this knew our pipeline, our nightly builds, the outage windows when alarms were blind. They didn't attack, they choreographed. They didn't break the system, they wore it like skin. This is theater, Ashford said. So we pulled a curtain. He wanted to hammer the DA with expert affidavits. I wanted something simpler. Seams. Real systems, even beautiful ones, have seams. Tiny mismatches where human habit rubs against machine certainty. I started with the compile artifacts. Why there? Donnie asked. Because compilers don't lie. I said. People forget what they fed them. We found a drift. The commits time zone metadata kissed Pacific time, but the build container had logged uniform UTC with a jitter that shouldn't exist unless someone spoofed the clock. Small. Defensible. But it was breathing. Next, device keys. The push claimed to originate from my laptop, but the TLS handshake pattern didn't match my machine's usual entropy curve. You can copy my credentials. You can't mimic the way my fan spins under load. Translation? Donnie said. They cloned your badge, but forgot your heartbeat. He smiled without humor. Good. Then came the ugly part. I pulled the list of every IP permitted for maintenance bursts. One user had a temporary elevation grant, rubber-stamped by corporate security for a compliance review. Name on the request, Dawes. I swallowed. Ex-cop. Hired by me. Old drinking buddy of Peter's. Access opened the door. The alias walked through. The script placed the knife in my hand. Say it out loud, Ashford pushed. They used my house keys, I said, voice flat. And they cleaned their shoes on the way out. I sat on the cot that night, counting half seconds in the dark and hearing Highway 17 curve like a question. If a lie is rehearsed, you look for the rehearsal. If a system is weaponized, you look for the operator who forgot he was human. I had been generous with trust. Now I would be precise with doubt. Plan? Donnie asked the next morning. Simple, I said. We replay their show with the house lights on. The same pipeline they wore like a mask would become our mirror. Line by line, log by log, breath by breath, we'd roll the tape backward until the choreography tripped. They left me alive. That was their mistake. They taught me where to look. That was mine to keep. There's a silence in a jail cell that isn't silence at all. It's buzzing fluorescence, coughing 2 blocks down, steel doors slamming like thunder. But inside your chest it feels different, an emptiness that grows teeth the longer you sit with the question, how the hell did my life bend this way? Donnie broke that silence. He came into visitation posture straight, like he was still in the core, scanning me for fractures. Ashford followed behind, Armani suit and shark eyes. They didn't sit right away, just stood there as if measuring what pieces of me were still intact. Donnie leaned forward. We found the first crack. My pulse ticked. He laid it out. The search history wasn't just tampered with, it was planted. Someone had ghosted onto my home network with a cloned Mac, a spoofed IP routed through Ellison's old MacBook Air. And the laptop? I asked. Ashford's mouth curled. Wiped and donated 2 days after the crash. Too clean. Donnie didn't blink. She staged an exit. Ashford slid papers across the glass, metadata printouts, transaction logs. One detail lit my nerves. Payments from a temporary account in Ellison's name, labeled as consulting fees. The recipient P. Mills. I exhaled hard. Consulting for what? Murder? Ashford didn't flinch. Framing you, apparently. The jury would never swallow theory, though we needed proof, blood in the water. Donnie tapped the papers. Think about it, Vince. They didn't just build this story, they rehearsed it. Which means somewhere, somehow, they practiced. That line cut deep. A lie rehearsed is never invisible. Practice always leaves residue. We started chasing cameras, cafes, garages, traffic feeds near the crash site. Ashford filed motions. Donnie leaned on old contacts in private security. Days later the footage surfaced, grainy but enough to breathe. A gas station on Camden Avenue, time-stamped 5 days before the crash. There they were. Peter crouched at the wheel well of Ellison's car. Ellison leaning close, her body language not afraid, not coerced, but complicit. He pointed under the chassis. She nodded. He smirked. My stomach turned. Donnie hit pause. They weren't fixing. They were rehearsing. That night, smuggled into my holding drive, I watched the 30-second clip on loop. 23 times. It wasn't betrayal caught. It was theater in rehearsal. Her face calm, practiced, the same look she'd given investors when they pressed with hard questions. The look that said, everything is going to plan. No sound, no confession, but body language doesn't lie. They were staging my execution scene by scene. The prosecutor painted me as desperate. The footage painted them as architects. Ellison wasn't afraid of Peter. She was in it. Every inch of her posture said partnership, not fear. I felt my chest lock. This wasn't about jealousy or even freedom. This was about a perfect lie rehearsed until smooth enough to fool a jury. Donnie leaned across the glass, voice steady. This is our wedge. You don't build a flawless con without practice. And they practiced in public. My lawyer nodded, scribbling notes with clipped fury. For the first time since Highway 17, I felt it. That hum of a system shifting. The blueprint wasn't invincible. It had seams. And when we found the footage, we'd found the first loose thread. I whispered it to myself that night, lying on the cot. Every play leaves rehearsal marks. And now the reel was running backward. I used to believe cameras existed for safety. Cover the right angles, sharpen the resolution, and the truth would survive. That was naive. Because when Donnie and I sat in a dim office in Cupertino, watching footage in 240p, the truth hit harder than any high-definition reel. A gas station camera above a tire pump, its lens clouded with rain spots, caught Peter bending at the wheel well of Ellison's Lexus. She stood behind him, too close, not like someone watching, more like someone trusting. That proximity wrote its own story. Donnie hit pause. Her face filled the pixel blur. Calm, focused, not nervous, not victimized. That same, everything is under control, look she used to sell to investors. I felt my throat tighten. She wasn't coerced, I said. Donnie nodded once. She was rehearsing. Ashford filed an immediate motion to reopen discovery, but one clip wouldn't break a courtroom. We needed pattern. So we kept digging, strip mall cameras, traffic feeds, even Uber dashcams parked near their neighborhoods. Then we found the alley tape. Santa Clara, Tuesday night, 2 days before the crash. Ellison's Lexus nose-to-nose with Peter's pickup. Grainy night vision, but clear enough. They leaned on the hood whispering. Then Peter opened her trunk, pulled a tool kit, and slid beneath the car. He stayed under there 12 minutes. Not fixing, preparing. Donnie whispered low, like in church, he's not repairing. He's planting. My skin crawled. It hit me. The crash wasn't just about police or jury theater. It was an insurance play. Ashford pulled the files. Ellison had doubled her life policy 6 weeks earlier, adding a survivorship rider worth nearly $4 million if the family went down together. For a million reasons for a carefully staged tragedy. And still, they missed something. Witnesses. There's always someone awake, someone walking a dog, someone looking out a window. That's how Donnie found Miranda Liu, a barista who worked nights at the cafe across from that alley. She remembered Ellison with a man in flannel crouched at the car. She remembered their silence when she passed, their eyes flicking toward her like she'd interrupted a spell. And she smiled at me, Miranda said when Donnie showed her a still frame. Smiled like I hadn't seen anything. My chest locked. But you did, Ashford told her. She nodded. Yes, I did. That witness turned a shadow into flesh. A witness, a pattern, a paper trail. Donnie pressed his palm on the table. The machine's flawless in code, Vince. But in the real world, people notice things. That night, lying on the cot, I thought about Miranda's words. A smile pretending nothing was wrong. I used to think cameras save the truth. But the real safeguard isn't silicon. It's people who remember what they saw and refuse to forget. His name was Sergio Onizes. 3 doors down from Waverly Street, retired electrician, the kind of man who always had jazz humming in the garage and a wrench in his hand. We'd nodded at each other for years, me backing the test layout, him bent over some gearbox, 2 men living parallel lives with nothing shared but routine. Until Donnie knocked on his door. At first Sergio was stone, weathered skin, calloused hands, eyes that didn't want to remember. Donnie didn't push, Marines no patience. 3 days later, in a diner booth off El Camino, Sergio finally spoke. His voice was low, like each word cost him. I didn't want trouble. Didn't even know what I'd seen, not until the news. He looked down at his coffee. But once I saw your face on TV, the pieces clicked. He told us about that night, 3 days before the crash. He'd been working late, gearbox scattered across a rag on his bench, when voices cut through the jazz. He looked up, saw a man crouched at our Lexus. Didn't know him then. Later he'd recognized Peter. Tools spread on the pavement in a cloth wrap, movements fast, efficient. Ellison stood nearby, arms folded, head turning like a lookout. Sergio's throat tightened as he recalled it. He wasn't fixing. He was removing. I felt my pulse stop. Removing what? Donnie asked. Sergio's hand shaped the air like he still held a wrench. Brake line. Passenger side. Saw him pull it free, slip it into his jacket, then wipe the metal down with a cloth. He paused. She waved at me. Sweet. Like she was just waiting for you to come home. My stomach nodded. Sergio's eyes dropped. And I waved back. Thought nothing of it. Until I saw your mugshot. His voice cracked. She fooled me, man. She really did. Smiled like nothing was wrong. Ashford nearly dropped his pen when he read the affidavit. Dates, times, tools, detail too sharp to ignore. Still, one witness wasn't enough. Peter was ex-cop. He knew how to vanish in plain sight. Ellison wore fragility like armor. We needed pressure. So we go public, Ashford said. Donnie raised a brow. Leak it. Leak it. And leak it did. A sealed pre-trial motion slipped into the press. Not from us directly, of course, but from concerned parties. By dawn the headlines flipped. Husband framed? Cop and wife under suspicion? The narrative cracked. Reporters swarmed, cameras flared, and for the first time since Highway 17, I wasn't the only silhouette in the spotlight. I lay on my cot that night and whispered it to myself. Pressure makes steel groan, and the machine they built was starting to creak. His name kept surfacing like oil on water. Lawrence Dawes, head of corporate security at my firm, the man I'd hired 6 years earlier to modernize our protocols. Back then he seemed reliable, clean resume, quiet ex-cop. What I didn't know was that he once shared a beat with Peter Mills, long nights and longer bar tabs, a bond forged in secrets. Donnie found the photo buried in Peter's old social feed. A retirement party, Peter's arm around Lawrence, both laughing too loud. A second shot, a poker game, same faces, beer cans scattered like confetti. Old friends pretending to be strangers. The fuse burned brighter when Donnie traced a permissions log from our internal server. Temporary admin access had been granted the same week the firmware on my car was altered. Source credentials, Dawes. He hadn't just looked the other way. He'd opened the gate. So he's the inside man, Ashford muttered, scanning the logs. Peter and Ellison needed a key. Dawes handed it over. It explained the too clean sabotage, the cloned credentials that never tripped alarms, the missing GPS logs from our private test server, the ones that could have cleared me. Donnie confronted him in a parking lot. No fists, just presence. Dawes froze like he'd seen a ghost. Before Donnie pressed, he started talking. Not a confession, not yet, but guilt leaking out like water from a crack. Peter saved me once, Dawes admitted. An old incident. If it came out, I'd have lost my badge. I owed him. His voice trembled. So when he asked me to ghost some credentials, I told myself it wasn't criminal. Just a favor. Donnie's jaw flexed. And now my brother sits in a cage. Dawes looked down, ashamed. Ashford moved fast. Immunity on the table in exchange for testimony. The DA balked at first, but when Sergio's affidavit hit the press and Miranda's account spread, pressure mounted. Public wanted answers, not scapegoats. Dawes broke. He signed the affidavit, laid out names, dates, the digital trail, how Peter had fed him just enough to stay compliant, how Ellison never met him in person, how the whole plan was sculpted to make me look desperate and unhinged. I thought he was bluffing, Dawes whispered when he gave his statement. I thought none of it would go that far. But it had. It had nearly buried me. And now the architects of the lie were stepping into the light one by one. I sat on the cot that night and felt something shift, The machine they'd built wasn't indestructible. It was starting to fold in on itself, seams tearing where pressure pressed hardest. Their blueprint was burning, and I had the match in my hand. Courtrooms don't sound like silence. They sound like pressure, air sealed tight, whispers like static, the weight of 100 eyes waiting to decide who you are. Late October, crisp air outside, cameras flashing like vultures circling. I walked in wearing the only suit I hadn't outgrown, Ashford to my left, Donnie to my right. I didn't feel innocent. I felt exhausted. Sergio took the stand first. Sleeves rolled, hands trembling, but voice steady enough to cut. He told the jury about Peter crouched under our Lexus, cloth bag of tools, Ellison standing guard, her fake wave across the street. He said the words that pierced through the prosecution's script. I saw what I saw. And I didn't say anything because I didn't want to believe it. The defense tried to rattle him, pressed about his eyesight, the late hour, the angle of his garage light. Sergio didn't flinch. Brake line. Passenger side. He wasn't fixing, he was removing. The jurors leaned in. Ashford caught the shift. Next came the tapes. Grainy surveillance, gas station blur, alley footage with Peter sliding beneath the car for 12 minutes. Verified, stamped, authenticated by Lawrence Dawes himself, now turned witness. He looked 20 years older, voice cracked when he admitted Peter pressured him. That Ellison never looked nervous, only calculated. Ashford wasn't done. He wheeled out a digital whiteboard, loaded with forensic analysis. Let me show you how a life is rewritten, he told the jury. He walked them through cloned search histories, mismatched time zones, financial files scrubbed then repasted. Metadata told a story cleaner than any witness could. The prosecution objected, desperate, but the judge let it run. You could feel the momentum shift, like a tide turning in the room. By week 2, reporters weren't whispering my name as a cautionary tale anymore. They whispered hers, and his, and Dawes's. Ellison cracked first. Not in court, her mask held there, but in the holding room that night. Word slipped out she confessed to her lawyer, begging for a plea. Claimed Peter orchestrated it all, claimed she was manipulated. But we knew better. She wasn't a puppet. She co-wrote the script. Peter was arrested outside a bar in Fremont, drunk enough not to fight. As they cuffed him, he smirked and said, "Guess the AI guy was smarter after all." Ellison got 8 years. Peter got 10. Dawes walked with probation and a career in ashes. Me? I got my name back, but not my life. When the verdict came, the press erupted. Donnie clapped me on the back. Ashford handed me the trial transcript bound in leather like a trophy. I left it in the back seat of his car and never opened it. Because some victories don't taste like wins. Some justice arrives too late to matter. I walked out of the courthouse into sharp wind and too blue sky, free but carrying rubble in my chest. The story was over for them. For me, it had only shifted shape. 7 years. That's how long it took for the weight to fade from my shoulders, not all at once, but in pieces, like a wall crumbling brick by brick. Healing isn't cinematic, it's slow and unglamorous. It's the first time I drove again without flinching. It's laughing at something my daughter said and not feeling guilty for it. Claire was 9 when the trial tore through her childhood. She used to crawl into my bed at night, silent, just curling against me like she was checking we were still alive. Now she's 26, a resident at Stanford Hospital, walking ER corridors with the calm she never had as a kid. I want to be the one people see on the worst night of their life, she told me once, and help them walk out of it. I didn't have words, just nodded, throat tight. James was 6 when he pressed his face to the school window and watched me handcuffed between squad cars. He never cried. He just stared, as if he knew life was rewriting itself in real time. Today he's 30, past the California bar, working defense in Oakland, steady voice and sharp mind. He told me, "I don't want what happened to you to happen to anyone else." When I watch him speak in court, I don't see the boy anymore. I see a man forged in fire. My company survived too, though barely. We restructured, shifted from autonomy to safety. I don't run the day-to-day anymore. I keep to R&D, ethics compliance, quiet corners. When people call me the founder, I smile and correct them. just part of the team. Donnie drifted north to Montana. Said California carried too many ghosts. Flathead Lake, pine trees, trout. He sends me photos of his dog asleep on the porch, calls me twice a week, still says Vince like we're kids again. He never said, I told you so. He never needed to. Nights in Los Altos are different now. The valley wind slides through my windows, the streetlights hum. Sometimes I think of Ellison, not often, just enough to remember that even deep wounds scar over. She doesn't haunt me anymore. I left her in that courtroom, in the headlines, in the silence of a cell. Because survival isn't a speech, it's not a grand third act. It's brewing coffee without bitterness. It's seeing your daughter lift a stethoscope. It's watching your son defend someone who could have been you. That's survival. That's what I built out of ash. I whisper it to myself some nights. They tried to erase me, but I was never gone. I was just sharpening. It came on a Tuesday morning, gray sky pressing low, kettle humming on the stove, the dog nudging my leg for food. Just another quiet day. Then the knock. Soft, hesitant, the kind people use when they're not sure they belong. I opened the door, and there she was. Ellison. 7 years later. Parole, early release, whatever excuse the system had offered. She looked smaller somehow. Not fragile, not ill, just hollowed, like time had scraped pieces out of her. Her hair cropped short, eyes dulled, but the smile was the same one she'd used to sell a lie. I just wanted to talk, she said. I didn't answer. The dog whined. I held him back with my leg and waited. She shifted, rehearsing lines. I've changed. I can't undo it. But I want to know the kids again. I just want a chance to explain. That was enough. My voice came low, steady. They don't need an explanation. They needed a mother. You made your choice. Her eyes glazed, a script of tears written into the performance. Are they okay? She asked. I held her gaze. They're more than okay. Claire saves lives. James defends them. They are whole. And they got there without you. No raised voice. No anger. Just the truth. The kind of truth that doesn't require punishment anymore, only distance. She stood there, waiting for a door that would never open. Then she turned and walked down the path, the same path she'd walked 7 years ago, when she thought I'd never crawl out of the grave she dug. I closed the door. That was it. No revenge. No collapse. No catharsis. Just silence. The silence I'd earned. Later that night, James sat on the porch, Claire on FaceTime from her hospital lounge. We didn't talk about her. We didn't need to. James leaned back, arms folded, and said, She doesn't get it. We're not her story anymore. He was right. Because this life, the house full of light, the laughter that no longer echoes, it isn't rubble from her choices. It's what we chose to grow in the aftermath. The past doesn't chase me anymore. It just stays where it belongs, behind. And me? I'm a man on a quiet porch with 2 extraordinary kids, and the kind of peace you only find when you've been buried alive and dug your way back. If you're asking how the story ends, it doesn't. It just moves forward. Without her. And the final echo I carry is simple. Peace isn't forgiveness. Peace is deciding what gets to live in your head.